We'll first talk about the epidermis. So the epidermis is the outer layer of your skin. So when you look at your skin or you look at somebody else, what you actually see is the epidermis. Main functions is protection. It's that outer barrier preventing things from entering your body. And it also provides waterproofing. Your skin provides a waterproof covering. Think about if you were to take a shower, you do not puff up like a sponge. Instead, the water beads on your skin because you're waterproof. Epidermis is avascular. The prefix a means not, vascular means blood. So your epidermis itself has no blood vessels. So to have the epidermal cells stay alive, they depend upon diffusion of the needed materials from the dermis because the dermis does have an extensive blood supply. So all of the gases and nutrients that the epidermal cells need, we have to rely on diffusion from them to get from the dermis up to the epidermal cells. The epidermis has 4 or 5 different layers. It depends upon the thickness of skin and the location of the skin on the body. So if we talk about those 5 epidermal layers, we're now going to go from the bottom of the epidermis up to the top or to the surface of the body. So the very bottom layer of the epidermis is the stratum basale. It's also called the stratum germinativum. It is the deepest layer. It's attached to the dermis. It has the most rapid cellular division of almost any cell in the body. And there's actually 3 different kinds of cells that make up the stratum basale. There's keratinocytes that their main job is to produce a protein called keratin, which makes our skin tough. There's melanocytes, and their job will be to produce the pigment melanin, which gives our skin its coloration. And then there are receptor cells for light touch. There are Merkel cells and Meissner's corpuscles. Both of those cells function in light touch sensations. So going up a layer, we now have the stratum spinosum. So these are cells that had been part of the stratum basale, but were pushed upward as new cells formed. And so these cells contain melanin. So the melanocytes that had developed on the stratum basale are now in the stratum spinosum producing melanin. The melanin isn't equally distributed throughout the cell. It actually accumulates on the top of the cells. And it does that because then it's forming a shield that covers the nucleus. And that is what protects your skin cells from ultraviolet radiation. If the radiation is able to access the nucleus, it then has the possibility of mutating your skin DNA, causing mutations, and could potentially lead to cancer. So by the melanin covering the nucleus, it's trying to protect that nucleus from the ultraviolet radiation. The more melanin that your skin produces, the stronger your shield is. The stratum spinosum also has many Langerhans cells, which are immune cells that protect your body from infection. So if somehow a pathogen was able to get down to this 4th layer from the top of your skin surface, there would be Langerhans cells here that would try to prevent that pathogen from getting any further into the body. Oops. So the stratum granulosum is the next one. So once we get to the stratum granulosum, the cells start to flatten out. Now remember, there is no blood flow in the epidermis, and it's relying completely on diffusion from the dermis. Well, by the time we're getting to the stratum granulosum, the distance is becoming too far for diffusion to bring up everything that the cell is going to need. So at this point, the organelles start to disintegrate and the cells are actually starting to die, which is why they're starting to flatten out. At this layer, the cells have been accumulating keratin and lipids, and this layer is providing a lot of waterproofing that prevents evaporation. Your skin is such a large surface that a lot of the water in your body could start to evaporate out. And so, not only does the waterproofing prevent liquids from being absorbed into your body, but it's also preventing evaporation of liquids out of your body. The stratum lucidum, this is the layer that is absent in some parts of your skin. It's a thin, transparent layer, and these cells are completely dead and flattened out. And the only place you're going to find these will be in places you have thick skin, the palms of your hands, the soles of your feet. If you end up getting a callus, that is where the skin has developed a thicker layer of stratum lucidum because there's constant friction in that area. And so your skin is providing an extra layer of protection there. And then the last layer, the very top layer of your skin, is the stratum corneum. The stratum corneum is completely made of dead cells. It's the first line of defense for protection, and it's continually sloughed off. You're constantly losing dead cells off the stratum corneum. So here you can see a graphic that's showing all of the 5 layers: stratum basale, stratum spinosum, stratum granulosum, stratum lucidum that is absent in many parts of your body, and then the stratum corneum. Like you can see in this animation, the epidermis originates from the bottom up. So the stratum basale is where all the growth is happening, and then it's constantly pushing other cells upward. So new cells continually push older cells toward the surface, and cells eventually slough off from the stratum corneum. You eventually lose those dead skin cells. It takes approximately 4 to 6 weeks for this cycle to complete. And if you were to collect all of the sloughed off stratum corneum, it would accumulate to about 40 pounds in your lifetime. So this happens just normally. You can increase the rate that the cells are sloughing off by exfoliating. Exfoliating helps to rub off some of those extra dead skin cells. It doesn't necessarily make the whole process happen faster, but it's going to get rid of some of those dead cells on the top. Now, this is extra information you're not going to find in your notes packet, but this explains why temporary tattoos or henna, for example, is temporary. Because in these sorts of skin colorations, the ink is deposited on the epidermis. And so it's only going to stay on the skin until those skin cells are eventually sloughed off. So that's what makes these kinds of tattoos and skin coloration temporary, because the cells will eventually go through their growth cycle, die, and eventually be discarded off of the body.